Hey everyone, Sean here, and welcome to another review. Now, this time around with a movie, and I wanted to sit down and talk about Mortal Kombat 2, the sequel to Mortal Kombat, for this 2020 movie series or movie lineup. We'll see if they do a trilogy or not, but we'll see. Or should I say, more than just a trilogy. But anyway, I enjoyed the first one for what it was. It was definitely a different experience because that was released during the sort of COVID era. Everyone was still relatively indoors. So the first movie was actually released on the streaming platforms, of course, with HBO Max, and that was definitely a different experience because I watched it here with friends online through Discord. We all kind of like screen shared it. We watched it, had a laugh. So it was a pretty different experience from that standpoint. But the movie itself, I think it was respectable. It was still enjoyable, but not without its flaws. So if I were to give it a rating, in case I didn't on this channel, at this point, it would have gotten a 7 out of 10. I think it was a pretty fair attempt, or overall a fair product for what it was. But now this time around was kind of like the opposite. I went alone to the theater with the IMAX version, so a little bit more of an expensive ticket. But let me say, while I did watch this alone by myself in a theater at late night, so barely anyone else was there in that same theater. So that experience was very focused, right? I had a pretty good experience just because there are no kids or anything like that around. And I gotta say, man, this second film for Mortal Kombat was pretty cool. It's still not perfect, but it was, I think, a lot better for probably several reasons. But yeah, I liked it. And let me talk about the things I did like about the movie. And this was pretty much like all action, minimal storytelling, pretty straightforward. If you're looking for a mystical martial arts film, this is the one to watch for this year. It's definitely the best has ever gotten for this sort of Mortal Kombat movie. They're a very different vibe from the classic ones from the 90s, where those are like very cheesy, but the product of their time. Whereas this one kind of celebrates the video game franchise with a lot of like the small details thrown in there, and you'll catch them if you're like a fan of the Mortal Kombat games. And so those little things I did like to see as someone who knows enough about Mortal Kombat. So I would consider myself a casual fan of the Mortal Kombat series, but more of a fighting game enthusiast for the general stuff. So I like what I saw when it came to those little small details for the movie. So yeah, it's really nice to see that they put that love into making this sequel, and you can kind of see that the same with the first film, but I think they put more love into this one. It even had like a funny little cameo relatively early on. Again, that was kind of funny that person was included into the film, and again, it just kind of adds really to the more sprinkles on that top of that cake. So that's what I liked about this movie, or one of the first things that I liked about the movie. It's like you could say it's the Easter eggs, the little details. The other thing, one of the other things I did really like about this film is the action scenes. I think they were choreographed for the most part very, very well. It was pretty much like most fights, and like I said, very minimal talking scenes other than the beginning, and then there's some part, those the like Baraka's village very much, and then a little bit of a talking scene somewhere more towards like before the climax ish. So it doesn't really happen for too long. Luckily enough, it's just most action and little less story or building, whether that's good for you or not. But for me, I didn't mind it, especially the way it was paced, especially when it was during the fight scenes. Those were beautifully paced, in fact. Plenty of destruction going on, just visceral, brutal, and of course, something with the Mortal Kombat name, it didn't skimp out on the violence or the gore. Although I do have some things to say about a certain character that will save for the later part of the video. But having said that, the action scenes were very, very well crafted, beautifully. There were even some like really cool shots, cool lighting to it. There wasn't any like dark fights or anything like that you couldn't hardly see. I mean, there is probably one that's a little bit of a disappointment too, but other than that, all those most of the fight scenes, even with the most disappointing one, it's like not all that bad either. They're all just well detailed, a lot of attention to it, and it lived up to the Mortal Kombat name pretty much. You know, when you get into Mortal Kombat, it's all about the violence, it's all about the brutalities, it's all about, of course, the fatalities and all that stuff. And I definitely think they didn't fail on those check marks for the most part. The other thing to really highlight though is the music. I think the music very much complemented a lot of those scenes, especially during the action scenes. At some point, you'll definitely hear the orchestral sort of version of the Mortal Kombat theme. Very beautifully crafted. It matches the quality through and through with the music and the fighting scenes and all that stuff, the filming and everything. Those parts have been put a lot of attention to, and so those parts I very, very much enjoyed as I was watching the movie. I don't think there was a moment where I even was like starting to feel like, hey man, this is dragging on, hurry up with it, or anything like that in my mind, or all that, or anything like that. Yeah, so I guess you could say that I liked the writing in this film, although I will put a little bit of a note that it's very relatively simplistic, as this is one of those action films where it's very much minimal sort of storytelling, but all action. And like I said, it's a in this case it's a good thing. I say anyway. Now I will say that this movie is definitely a Johnny Cage story. It definitely focuses on Johnny Cage, and I would consider most of the character progression is with Johnny Cage, whereas everybody else, it's kind of just there. They're never really progress by any means. I guess the only other character that's kind of moving forward a bit is Liu Kang, which I will not explain because it'll kind of spoil things. But with Johnny Cage, for the most part, he's the one that changes the most, and I think that's fine because I did like this Johnny Cage, speaking of which. Even though the casting on this Johnny Cage has been very weird, even up to this point, although it is with Karl Urban, who has been a very fun actor to see. Of course, I liked him from Thor Ragnarok, of course. He played one of the characters there, with the guns and everything. And he was a joy when it comes to The Boys, right? And, as William Butcher, very, very popular character in that circle when it comes to The Boys. And then now, of course, he is Johnny Cage for this time, a much older depiction with his face and everything. And yeah, it is funny to hear him try to hide his accent and all that stuff. But for what it is, I think he did a pretty good job as Johnny Cage. Like it did still feel like Johnny Cage, but you can kind of see the difference, right, when it comes to all the other Johnny Cages depicted, whether it be in a video game or in a movie. But Urban was able to be to respectfully play Johnny and his little journey in this movie and all that fun stuff. How he went about things, how he did his take on Johnny Cage. Again, a little funny with the accent or lack thereof, or at least when he's trying to hide it. You can kind of still hear a little bit of the butcher here and there, which I immediately enjoyed. But I overall enjoyed Urban's performance as Johnny Cage. Simply put, it was definitely funny enough. There, the jokes, speaking of which, were pretty good. They weren't like, they didn't make me laugh like out loud or anything like that, but I kind of like cracked a smile a bit here and there because I thought it was kind of cute. The other character I really wanted to talk about though in this film is, of course, the other featured character, and that is Shao Kahn. This Shao Kahn is the best Shao Kahn that I've seen in the movie, of course, or this was a very, very well depicted Shao Kahn. Just from the looks alone, the helmet looked great. I love the eyes. They never like went too much in the face. It's all about the helmet that does the speaking. I love the effect with the red lit eyes. Very, very much love that. To me, that's Shao Kahn for sure. They definitely gave him most of the moves, although you see most of the shoulder charge. I'll give it that. While I did enjoy his look and everything, his presence was pretty good. I kind of just wish for a little more Shao Kahn. I felt like they kind of skimped him out a little bit, which is a little bit disappointing. But whenever he was on the screen, it was pretty enjoyable. But this is where it starts to kind of get a little shaky here, and I start to have my complaints here, starting with Shao Kahn, because while his presence was great and all, I just wish they did a little more with him. And when it comes to the combat stuff, I mean, yes, he is brutal, he's powerful, he definitely felt that. But when it came to the fatality stuff, I felt like they should have gave him just more than just one move. He always kind of like did the same thing to people. That's my only disappointment with him. Now, he did do the one thing to one character, which I'll, definitely not forget that part. But for most of the other characters, he kind of does the same thing, and it's just a little disappointing in that regard. As a casual fan of the Mortal Kombat stuff, as someone who knows enough about Shao Kahn, they didn't quite do everything I look forward to Shao Kahn. Now this is a bit of a nitpick, but I wish he, recited one of the lines, such as, you suck. He didn't really do that. I know it doesn't really quite fit this Shao Kahn, but it would have been funny that they would try to fit that in the film. Doesn't take away the points or anything like that, but that's just kind of what I wished for. But when it came to like the villain side, speaking of Shao Kahn, while Shao Kahn was very cool, the villain side was a little disappointing. It was a severe lack of the villain characters this time around, unlike the previous film, where the first film definitely shined with the character roster. There are a lot of characters there, while they didn't do a whole lot, or didn't have too much screen appearance, but they were there nonetheless. This time around was quite disappointing. There was literally like very little actual bad guys in this film. The only other one besides Shao Kahn I can think of is Sindel. And even Sindel didn't have too much of a presence there either. So if anything, I think one of the downsides to this movie was the villains, besides Shao Kahn. Like, Shao Kahn was great and all, but Shao Kahn has his little posse, and besides his army, of course. And his little posse was was very lacking. But and even so, yeah, the other villains that do show up didn't do a whole lot either. So I'm a little disappointed. I mean, they are important for the story, but when it comes to the fighting, not much of it. Not much happened there. The ones that really had a lot of presence was Kitana and of course Jade. Those are the ones that I can remember right on top of my head. And there were a couple of scenes where it starts to get a little shaky. And one of those scenes that I can say right on top of my head that kind of had that sort of issue is when they get to Baraka's village. There was a scene that so basically, without spoiling things, Johnny Cage was supposed to get this sort of pep talk, but it was kind of like just oddly paced. It didn't really like wrap up or conclude real nicely. I mean, maybe it was there was a point to it, but maybe the point was he didn't really get to hear the pep talk, and then stuff happened, right? So if you know what I'm talking about with the pep talk in the Baraka village, yeah, you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyway, that's the only like sort of odd scene that I can remember right on top of my head. But really, I think really though, to me, the big downsides was just the villain side with the roster size and everything, and even the other like sort of prominent villains didn't do a whole lot on screen anyway. So like I said, it's kind of disappointing to see that they didn't really do all that much until of course you had Noob Saibot. Noob Saibot was really cool. I like what they did with the Shadow Clone and everything, how he fought in there and all that stuff in the Nether Realm. Very, very cool. Now that's not a spoiler technically because that's in the trailer, so I can definitely say that. And that whole Nether Realm fight scene, great. I mean, I didn't have any complaints there. It was beautifully depicted and everything. Him and Scorpion, of course, definitely fought beautifully on the screen. So definitely not very minimal complaints there. So that's really like the most of the complaints that I had for this time around for the movie. It was simply the villain side of the roster, and just a couple of some of the nitpicky sides when it comes to some of the scenes. Well, no, I think this movie was a pretty big improvement from the first one, even though, yes, the first one had more roster, more characters, but I think the overall quality of the action scenes in this one, beautiful. It was great, especially with the sound and everything, with the IMAX experience, definitely helped with that for sure, or definitely very supplemental to the experience. But even just this movie alone, had a good time with it. Johnny Cage was a good time. The humor was definitely there for sure. Everybody else was pretty cool. They had the good guys definitely had it good. I'll give it that. And of course, like the movie wrapped it up pretty nicely. And I will say that the movie does set up for another sequel or the trilogy, right? The threequel, and I definitely much would look forward to the next film. So with all that said, with everything laid on the table, I'm gonna go ahead and give this a 8 out of 10. I think it's a pretty strong film. Apart from like a couple things I had to complain about, I definitely would say go check it out, especially if you are a pretty big fan of the Mortal Kombat stuff. Like I said, I'm more of a casual guy when it comes to Mortal Kombat side of things, but I know enough, so being able to see the smaller details, the little Easter eggs, the cameo, and all that stuff, pretty nice. So yeah, 8 out of 10. Would I see it again? Probably not. That's the one thing I guess I would say. I definitely got everything out of that one sitting. I'm pretty good. It's a good one-time experience. I would say go ahead and watch it. So, whether you are a Mortal Kombat fan or a fan of fighting games in general. So that's pretty much it on my side. Oh, and I guess, yeah, there are some questions to be had. It does set up for not just like Johnny Cage, but there are some things happening with other characters, and it does kind of set up for what are things to come for the next movie, of course. So I'm not gonna spoil it too much here. Probably not gonna even talk about too much spoilers. In fact, I'm probably gonna skip out on that for this time. Anyways, that like and subscribe and the comment really helps out, and I do appreciate it. So this has been my review for Mortal Kombat 2. Hope you guys enjoyed it because I enjoyed the film myself. So I was glad to be able to watch it and give it my ticket purchase for Mortal Kombat. I hope this succeeds because these movies tend to be a little more niche, and you know I hope for its success in the theater release. We'll see. So, anyways, thank you very much, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Sean out.